October 30th, 2020. 4 days until November 3rd. 4 days until President Trump is reelected. Hashtag Trump is the best. Democrat henchmen have proven that Donald Trump is the most honest and incorruptible president ever. Fake news lies cannot dirty up squeaky clean Donald. Hashtag Obamagate. Obama is still the most corrupt president in history. A divider of the nation along race, gender, physical attribute, and situation. The coup attempt goes all the way to the top. Obama, Biden, and their puppet masters, which is why the cabal of media, government agencies, and social media oligarchs are circling the wagons around the Biden crime family. Don't forget to follow and subscribe on all the social media, including Parler and Rumble. Check us out at jimbojohngalt.com. The Trump family has been put through the ringer of investigations, lies, and innuendos. And now we are 4 days out from the 2020 presidential election, the Friday before the Tuesday election day of November 3rd. The Trump sons were forced to testify under penalty of perjury for hours on end, requiring expensive lawyers to make sure they weren't cornered into a perjury trap, or if they misremembered a trivial date or inconsequential detail, which would result in a process crime or opening them up for prosecution for simply misremembering/lying to Congress or an FBI agent, which is amazingly a crime alone just to misremember something to an FBI agent. So far, only Trump allies are prosecuted for those fake crimes, while Comey, Clapper, and the rest of the deep state are not. Major problem in our society is the dumbing down that our educational system has done. People believe the left's marketing that Obama and Biden were pure, almost saintly, because they smiled and spoke in an agreeable manner. This is not good because leaders are supposed to lead, and those two lied and failed to do what is best for America. President Trump is your come-to-Jesus guy. He'll tell you messed up and to pick it up and do better next time. He's there to help you help yourself. Soft and lazy Biden voters don't want to hear that they made a mistake, so they blame others. Joe Biden is a criminal. He abused his position in the government. He took an oath of office, pledging to the Constitution, and he violated that oath. This has been proven time and time again, and most recently in the suppressed Washington Post articles. Trump was spied on, investigated, and impeached for what Joe Biden actually did in Ukraine. It is time for Biden to be put under that same microscope. The career politician who has multiple homes and a family who has become famously wealthy without any describable talents other than sharing the Biden name. This isn't about judging others or their families. That is for their God, their own morals, and their own ethical compasses. This is about selecting the most powerful and influential person in the world, every American's life. President Trump has proven in the last 4 years he is a patriot, fighting for the rule of law and our Constitution. From what we know of Joe Biden, he is self-dealt to benefit himself and his family at the expense of American people, and most likely violating the law and violating his pledge to the Constitution. The flailing legacy Democrat media controls so much of the information flow, and since they have silenced the credible, numerous, voluminous, verified, and in-your-face information about Joe Biden, we are forced to go deeper into the Biden family. Unfortunately, this must include looking at deceased son Beau Biden and the grandchildren of the vice president and presidential candidate. This is not something we are excited about, but it is a necessary result of the Silicon Valley oligarch censorship. There is something not right about staying silent, suppressing any mention of the evidence, and attacking anyone who is brave enough to put their livelihoods on the line by talking about the obvious Biden scandals. On the surface, the Bidens seem to have a beautiful family. Joe and Jill Biden look like they are in a loving long-term marriage. Jill's first husband, Bill Stevenson, recently said, "I was betrayed by the Bidens. Joe was my friend. Jill was my wife." He told his story of how Joe and Jill had an affair when he was married to Jill. Joe and Jill concocted a lovely story of a beautiful romance in March of 1975, where Joe's brother Jim introduced them after Joe's wife, Nelia, was killed in a car accident. This isn't true. Brother Frank knew Jill from college. Jill and Joe's relationship actually started in 1974 when she was still married to Stevenson. Despite the official 1975 blind date narrative, Stevenson claims he introduced the two of them years earlier, and they knew each other well. Stevenson actually threw a fundraiser for him for his first campaign and raised over $3,000. Stevenson and Jill got married in 1970. Stevenson said, "I introduced Joe to Jill in 1972, right before that 72 election. Jill, Joe, Nelia, and I were in his kitchen," according to Bill Stevenson. Stevenson said, "How do you forget that?" And yet, Joe Biden continues with this fallacy. Every election cycle, stories come out about the candidates. As they add up and are told, this one sounds legit, especially after hearing and reading Hunter Biden's emails and hearing from multiple witnesses about Joe's involvement in Hunter's businesses, while Joe repeatedly and emphatically denies any involvement in my son's business dealings. His veneered politician's grin is classic grifter. Joe has been known as a liar his entire life. He was caught plagiarizing in law school and kicked out for a year. Now, information's coming out about his story about how his wife was killed in a car crash. Joe has claimed that the driver was drunk. Information has come out that has said that, yes, it's unfortunate that the man had an accident and that Joe's wife died, but he was not drunk. There was no evidence that he was drunk. But Joe has inserted that to make it sound more of a victim for the Biden families. There are many questions, not just about Joe and Jill's marriage story, but about the entire family. Today, the question of how can Jill Biden allow her clearly dementia-rattled husband run for president when everyone can see his cognitive decline and run the risk of Hunter's past and present being publicized? How can Jill allow this? How much deeper must the Biden corruption go if the legacy media and online oligarchs censor obvious, true testimony from Biden family associates and business partners? Who else will be exposed when or if that mainstream media ever allows those stories to be published on their platforms? Obama's clearly. Clinton's? The rest of the establishment swamp that President Trump was elected to drain will be exposed. The swamp is deep. James Biden, who goes by Jim, his entire career appears to be founded upon his brother Joe's political career. The two of them together in pictures do not look like upstanding folks. Joe's body language excretes deception, sneakiness. Before we had the evidence from Tony Bobulinski and the jailed Bevan Cooney, Joe's denials and his angry responses did not fit with an innocent man's behavior. It was obvious he was lying and was involved with, if not controlling, his son Hunter's businesses. Tony Bobulinski and Bevan Cooney were business associates of Hunter Biden. We've heard a lot about Hunter Biden recently in the news, even the suppressed news. But there's a daughter, Ashley Biden, 39. She is the youngest of the three Joe Biden offspring. She is the only one born to the vice president and his second wife, Jill. She was arrested for marijuana when she was a student at Tulane University in 1999. But no conviction was recorded in the court records. What happened to those records? A second misdemeanor for arrest for the Biden daughter was reported in 2002 after she allegedly attempted to obstruct a police officer, making intimidating statements after a bottle-throwing brawl outside a Chicago bar. Miraculously, all those charges were dropped. 10 years later, during her father's vice presidency, a video circulated showing snorting what appeared to be cocaine at a party. Classic Joe Biden refused to comment on the reports, which is what he's doing now. He's hiding in his basement, refusing to answer legitimate questions. He is the alleged frontrunner against President Trump for the presidency, and yet he refuses to answer, even be asked, questions by the media. We only bring up these seemingly inconsequential Biden family members because it shows a pattern. It shows an MO. It shows the parenting and how the family operates. They're all privileged. They all have not faced consequences for their rude and sometimes criminal behavior. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Another doozy of a human being is Jim Biden's daughter, Caroline Biden. In 2013, she was arrested in Manhattan for assaulting a police officer and for refusing arrest after a dispute with a roommate over unpaid rent. Caroline accepted a conditional dismissal deal, with prosecutors saying the offer was extended because the police weren't seriously injured. She also agreed to remain in therapy for another few months for anger management. Caroline was also arrested a year later for driving under the influence and driving without a license in a Philadelphia suburb. In 2018, she was sentenced to 2 years probation by a Manhattan court for using a credit card to buy more than $100,000 worth of beauty products. The credit card was not hers. She's basically a blonde party girl. No responsibility for the privileged Biden spawn. There's a video of her in a hallway after court. It shows a woman with a hired lawyer alone. Not a pretty picture of a woman new to controversy. She's been there before. The family wanted it to go away quietly, so the family didn't even show up to support her during a court hearing. She and Hunter appear to be twisted souls. Now, what about Beau Biden? We'll get to Beau in a little bit. On to Frank Biden, Joe's youngest brother. He's been arrested multiple times for driving under the influence and for theft. He's a non-lawyer at the Berman Law Group. Frank worked in the Clinton administration as Director of Legislative and Congressional Affairs and was involved in the election campaigns of his brother, Joe Biden, and as an advisor and unpaid campaign coordinator over many years. For the past several years, Frank Biden served as the director of a major charity in Central America, providing pediatric AIDS relief, building homes, and providing scholarships for the poorest of the poor. That is from his own website. Frank has failed to pay nearly $1 million, which was part of a civil judgment against him after he was involved in a car crash that killed Michael Albano in California back in 1999. Frank refused to show up for a single court hearing in the case, and he was found to be liable by the way of a default judgment. To this day, Frank has not paid the family a cent. Frank, who's now 66 years old, describes himself as a senior advisor to his brother's political action committee. He lives in Florida. Back in 2003, Frank was arrested in Fort Lauderdale. According to police reports, Frank was pulled over, and his eyes were red and his speech was slurred. Officers smelled alcohol. Police also noticed an empty bottle of Popov vodka in his car. Can you get any cheaper than Popov? When police gave Frank a field sobriety test, he kept losing his balance and was unable to touch his finger to his nose. At that time, Frank's license had been suspended 4 times. He was arrested and charged with driving under the influence and driving with a suspended license. Frank pleaded no contest. Miraculously, the court sentenced Frank to 6 months of probation and an additional 6 months of having his license suspended. Most people with similar criminal driving histories would have been incarcerated. And just 2 months later, before his drunk driving case was taken up in court, Frank was arrested on charges of petty theft for allegedly trying to steal DVDs. In November 2004, he was arrested a 3rd time in Juno Beach, Florida, for a suspended license. Again, he should have been jailed, but instead he was given rehab. He was given rehab for a suspended license? There was no charge of DUI in this case. Clearly, he received preferential treatment. Frank was involved in something called the Maverick Schools, which receives federal funding. Each one of these Maverick schools down in Florida receives about $250,000 a year in federal grants. The schools fail to educate the children, but Frank gets rich. Frank is a non-lawyer working at the firm in Florida. Frank is a bagman. Frank's a non-lawyer. But just months after Vice President's visit to Costa Rica, news is announced of a new multilateral partnership, get this, to reform real estate in Latin America, between Frank Biden, a developer Craig Williamson, and the Guanacaste Country Club, a newly planned resort. Even as his lack of background in international development and decades-old legal troubles at home, Frank Biden gets rich. Frank Biden gets put on contracts without doing any work. Frank then entered into a partnership with the Costa Rican National Power and Light Company to build a solar power complex, which, coincidentally, will also power that country club development. Frank Biden's companies received $54 million in taxpayer-funded loans to finance those energy projects in Central America. Just like his son, Biden's brother also has no energy experience. Now on to Beau Biden. This is a hard one. We don't like talking about somebody that can't defend themselves. Beau Biden was born in 1969 and passed away of cancer in 2015. He graduated from the prestigious Archmere Academy, which was his father's alma mater, and the University of Pennsylvania in 1991. He went to the Syracuse University College of Law, as did his father. After graduating from law school, he clerked for a connected judge, Stephen McCulloch, in New Hampshire. From 1995 to 2004, he worked at the U.S. Department of Justice in Philadelphia. It appears that in 1999, Biden was outsourced to Kosovo and worked on behalf of another governmental agency, OSCE, to train judges and prosecutors for their local judicial system. In 2004, he became a named partner in a local personal injury law firm. He worked there for about 2 years before being elected the Attorney General of Delaware. Must be good to have the Biden name, to get moved around the world, to get a partner gig, and then get elected the Delaware Attorney General. Beau was in the Army National Guard. Beau spent 1 year in Iraq as a major, Judge Advocate General, from November 2008 to September 2009. Remarkably, he was also the Attorney General from 2007 through 2015. Those years overlapped with his service in the National Guard. It appears no-show ghost jobs is a thing for the Bidens. When Beau was in Iraq, he was awarded the Bronze Star Medal. After Beau passed away, Army Chief of Staff Raymond Odierno delivered the eulogy at his funeral and presented a posthumous Legion of Merit medal for his service in the Delaware National Guard. You've got the Army Chief of Staff delivering a eulogy at his funeral. That doesn't happen for just anyone. Why did he receive these medals? No one has ever said. In pictures online, at galas, Beau is seen wearing more than just 2 medals. It looks like some tin pot dictator in the jungles of Central America. The gall of the Bidens after Beau's death, they create the Beau Biden Foundation for the Protection of Children. Foundation's leadership, which was charging $3,000 for lessons on preventing online child abuse. The foundation was supposed to be offering lessons on how to spot online predators. How ironic with the recent revelations from Hunter's hard drive from hell. Deep State former FBI Director Louis Freeh was on the board. Louis Freeh was on the board of the Beau Biden Foundation. He was also recruited by Hunter Biden to work on a legal case of a Romanian businessman, Papaviciu, who was convicted of fraud. All the while, Joe Biden was pressuring the Romanian government to fight corruption. Hunter Biden was fighting to get Papaviciu's conviction overturned. Biden's former staffer, Mark Gittenstein, had been appointed as ambassador, and Beau had cut in the ribbon for the new embassy in Romania. More is being brought out about the Romanian influence, the Romanian money that the Bidens received. We pray for Beau Biden's soul. We hope that he was different than the rest of the family. More and more emails are coming out. If they go back before 2015, more will be revealed about Beau Biden. We pray for him. And now on to the shining star, Hunter Biden. Hunter's travails are legendary at this point and are covered in detail regarding his debauchery and the attendant covering up by the family and the press. His professional life has been ignored because his personal story is so tragic. He went to Georgetown undergraduate and Yale Law School. His ex-wife, Kathleen Buell, is from Chicago. They have 3 kids and now works full-time at the D.C. Volunteer Lawyers Project. They met at a Jesuit volunteer organization. Ex-wife Kathleen is supposedly BFFs with Michelle Obama. Kathleen should be interviewed. She would surely have some family stories to tell. Was she an innocent, naive lady duped by the conniving Bidens, or was she a willing participant? From all reports, Kathleen was a sweet lady, a very good reputation, and unfortunate they got messed up with the Bidens. You can understand, at that time, the Bidens appeared to be a very powerful family. Hunter had many business dealings, not on his own, but because of who his daddy was. Tucker Carlson interviewed the most credible business associate of Hunter Biden, who was brought in to be the CEO of a China-related entity that Hunter arranged. His name is Tony Bobulinski. he provided testimony and written evidence that he personally met with Vice President Joe Biden on multiple occasions and said Joe Biden was intimately involved in the business deal with the Communist Chinese Party. Joe Biden has not answered any questions surrounding these revelations, and Hunter Biden is also nowhere to be found. It would be wise to put Hunter on suicide watch. Hunter Biden got his start right out of school as a senior vice president at MBNA America Bank, one of his dad's wealthiest corporate campaign donors. Must be nice. Hunter Biden was a top official at Paradigm Global Advisors, which was founded with his uncle, Jim, and marketed by convicted finance fraudster Alan Stanford. We mentioned it earlier, but not known until A Hard Drive from Hell, Romania. Hunter Biden's work for Papaviciu in 2016 went unreported, but Joe Biden's involvement in Romania was very much public. At the time, the vice president was among the leading voices pushing the government to crack down on corruption. Hunter Biden was performing work for the law firm of Beau, Schiller, and Flexner, where he was of counsel. Romania was a familiar place to the Biden family. A close friend and former staffer of Joe Biden, Mark Gittenstein, was the U.S. ambassador to Romania from August 2009 until December 2012. In 2012, Beau Biden did the ribbon-cutting ceremony at the new U.S. Embassy in Bucharest. Hunter had a convicted real estate tycoon as a client in a bid to overturn his conviction that ultimately failed. That tycoon was sentenced to 7 years in prison in August of 2017. Even the Democrat Robert Weissman, the president of Public Citizen, a nonprofit government watchdog group, said it's hard to avoid the conclusion that Hunter Biden secured his overseas position because of his name. The deep state actors are intertwined and interconnected. All it will take for one to come clean, and they will all fail. Are we beginning to see it now with jailed Cooney and free, honest Bobulinski? It must come quickly before the election next week. Wherever Joe went, Hunter seemed to follow. The family wealth followed Joe Biden's government service. From Romania on to China. Hunter Biden was identified as the chair or vice chair, depending on which agreement with CEFC, which was an apparent reference to the former Shanghai-based conglomerate China Energy, which is a front group for the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party. Hunter Biden wrote in one of his emails that Yi, who was a CCP, Chinese Communist Party intelligence recruiter, tasked with recruiting foreign leaders. Joe Biden, it appears, was recruited. Yi, he had sweetened the terms of an earlier 3-year consulting contract with the Bidens to pay them $10 million annually for introductions alone. That deal was sweetened to an ownership stake, an equity stake in CEFC. CEFC is a government-sponsored entity, a GSE of the Chinese Communist Party. Hudson West 3 was the Biden family corporation set up to funnel money to the Bidens. They opened a line of credit, a non-recourse line of credit, with the CCP. In September of 2017, credit cards issued against that account were used by Hunter, his uncle Jim, and Jim's wife, Sarah, to purchase more than $100,000 worth of extravagant items, including airline tickets and multiple items at Apple stores, pharmacies, hotels, and restaurants. Question remains, did they pay taxes on that little spending spree? And now on to Ukraine, the oh-so-famous Ukraine. Hunter Biden introduced his father, then Vice President Joe Biden, to a top executive at the Ukraine energy firm before Joe Biden pressured government officials in Ukraine to fire the prosecutor that was investigating Hunter Biden's client company, Burisma, where he sat on the board. This never-before-revealed meeting is mentioned in a message of appreciation that Vadim Polzarski, who was an advisor to the board of Burisma, sent to Hunter Biden on April 17th of 2015, about a year after Hunter joined the Burisma board at a reported salary of up to $50,000 a month. It's actually close to $200,000 a month. Joe Biden was the vice president at the time. Sounds like treason. In the email, it reads, "Dear Hunter, thank you for inviting me to D.C. and giving me the opportunity to meet your father and spend some time together. It's really an honor and a privilege, the email reads. An earlier email from 2014 also shows Pozarski asking Hunter, in quotes, for advice on how you could use your influence on the company's behalf. That was in 2014. Hunter was put on the board. 2015, the email is sent, thanking him for personally meeting Joe Biden. This exposes yet again Lion Joe's claim that he's never spoken to my son about his overseas business dealings. More and more is contained in that massive trove of data recovered from Hunter's abandoned laptop computer. In 2013, after flying on Air Force Two with his dad, Vice President Joe Biden, that trip to China netted Hunter's firm $1.5 billion. At 10% per year, the Bidens get massively rich. Most of the recent information is public now because of Hunter's drug problems. It's a sad story, but it is necessary for the survival of this country. The information has to be public. Here's a brief history. In 2003, Hunter Biden admitted himself to Crossroads Center Antigua for a month to try to dry out. The day he returned home, he and his brother Beau went to his first AA meeting in Washington. This is 2003. He's been struggling for a long time. By Hunter's own account, he was sober for 7 years before drinking 3 Bloody Marys on a flight home from a business trip in Madrid in 2010. His drinking continued until he returned to the Crossroads Center several months later in 2010. He relapsed again in 2013. In 2014, Hunter was discharged from the Navy for cocaine. The test was in June of 2013. This all happened after Daddy Creepshow Joe got him a waiver to enter the Navy at an advanced age. The Navy had to accept him, only because Vice President Joe Biden pressured them. It appears that the Navy knew that he was a drug addict, and that's why they tested him on his first day reporting to duty. Later that same year, Hunter was appointed to the Burisma Ukraine board for anywhere from $50,000 to nearly $200,000 per month. In July of 2014, after all this went down, he went to a clinic in Tijuana for treatment using ibogaine, which is a psychoactive alkaloid derived from the roots of a West African shrub that is illegal in the United States. From there, he went to Flagstaff, Arizona, where a practitioner of Vedic meditation advised him to meditate twice a day and help keep his cravings from alcohol at bay. In the fall of that same year, he enrolled in a 12-step yoga retreat in Big Sur, California. Hunter's life sounds so sad and tragic. Even with all that free money rolling in, money does not make you happy. In 2015, Biden was an outpatient at the Charles O'Brien Center for Addiction Treatment at the University of Pennsylvania. He practiced yoga daily until December of 2015. For weeks, he would only leave his apartment to buy bottles of Smirnoff vodka. He went back to that Big Sur Institute in February of 2016 and enrolled in a rehab program when he returned to Washington. In the fall of 2016, he left in his rental car a crack pipe with residue, a Delaware Attorney General's badge, Secret Service cards, and 2 Hunter Biden IDs. He finally spent a week at another lifestyle center, which is a local detox, rejuvenation, and healing retreat, before checking in to another rehabilitation center, basically a resort spa. This is where it gets really creepy. Hallie Biden, who is Beau Biden's widow, she flew down to meet him at that resort spa, and they decided to become a couple. They began living together in Maryland in August 2017, but supposedly split a few months later. Hunter said, "All we got was shit from everybody all the time. It was really hard, and I realized that I'm not helping anybody by sticking around." Hunter moved to Los Angeles in 2018. That same year, he fathered a child with a stripper from a sex club, while at the same time dating his brother's widow, Haley. He impregnated that stripper while having sex at Larry Flint's Hustler Club. Hunter and his ex-wife Kathleen, who were married in 1993, they filed for divorce in December of 2016. The divorce was final in April of 2017. Hunter started dating Haley in 2016, and the news only broke of it in February of 2017. Beau died in May of 2015. All of these dates, you have to keep them straight. Hunter broke up with Haley, the widow, in April of 2019. Just like Joe and Jill Biden, the mystery surrounding when Joe actually started to date married Jill and when Hunter actually started dating widow Haley is up for questioning. Hunter isn't one to let moss grow. Hunter married a woman named Melissa Cohn 6 days after meeting her in rehab in May of 2019. Again, dates are important. This was supposedly just 1 month after breaking up with widow Haley. This family has no shame. Hunter actually spoke at the virtual Democrat National Committee convention with his sister Ashley, who we mentioned before. Ashley's married to a plastic surgeon. Her face is so Botoxed and unemotional, she looks like she's married to a plastic surgeon. How daring and brazen of the establishment Biden family, knowing that the FBI had this laptop from hell with all of the incriminating evidence on it that they needed to convict the entire family, that they put this drug addict, grifter, Hunter Biden on a national platform, acting as if he is somebody to be listened to. The FBI sat on this laptop. They buried it. They were never going to bring it out. Fortunately, the computer repairman where Hunter left and abandoned this laptop computer turned it over because he was scared that something nefarious might happen to him. Allegations from this computer accuse Hunter and his business associates of establishing bank and financial accounts with Morgan Stanley for Burisma Holdings Limited for a money laundering scheme. Influence peddling and money laundering go hand in hand. Where is the IRS? Where is the IRS's investigators looking into the Biden cabal? At the time, the accounts showed a value of nearly $6.8 million between March of 2014 and December of 2015. James Biden, Joe's brother, is the link to it all. He's been with Joe as the bagman since Joe was first elected to the Senate back in the 70s. James/Jim brought Hunter in, as we mentioned before, to Paradigm Global Advisors, which was his hedge fund. It was founded by James and marketed, as we mentioned, by the convicted fraudster Alan Stanford. This is a crime family. Jim Biden's White House visits dovetailed with his overseas business dealings, and his commercial opportunities flourished during Joe's tenure as vice president. We could go on for hours about James Biden's business dealings that dovetail with Joe Biden's travels around the world. But in one case, noteworthy is Iraq. A longtime friend, Kevin Justice, visited the White House and met with Biden advisor Michelle Smith in the vice president's office. Kevin Justice worked for Hillstone, and they announced that James Biden would be joining the firm as an executive vice president. Jim Biden appears to have very little or no background in housing construction, but that didn't seem to matter. Hillstone was starting negotiations to win a massive contract in war-torn Iraq. 6 months later, surprisingly, the firm announced a contract to build 100,000 homes. It was part of a $35 billion, 500,000 unit project won by Track Development, a South Korean company. Hillstone, where James Biden is now an executive vice president, also received a $22 million U.S. government contract to manage a construction project for the State Department. But Hillstone made a crucial error. In 2013, the firm was forced to back out of the contract because of a serious problem, including lack of experience. But Hillstone continued doing significant contract work in Iraq, including a 6-year contract with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. James Biden remained with Hill International, which accumulated contracts from the federal government for dozens of projects. Those contracts also included projects in the United States, Puerto Rico, Mozambique, and other countries. Surprisingly, We need to look even further into where those contracts are and where Joe Biden landed. This is just one of many, many grifter deals that brother James Biden has gotten because of his brother Joe Biden. These are just a few of the Biden family scandals, the corruption. We don't like to operate in innuendo, smearing somebody's reputation or character. The facts are there. You can make your own decisions. The question is, what can you do to change it? What can you do to save America? What can any one person do? Take the time to educate yourself about what is going on. It can be confusing and frustrating, but our country's future depends upon it. Is it too much to ask to save yourself and to all of us? Is it too much to ask to do a little education to save yourself and, in effect, all of us American citizens in the process? Donald Trump is fighting for us. We need to fight for us and for him to continue draining the swamp. The swamp is real, people, and it is deeper than we could have ever imagined. Today we have proof positive. It is shown just in the last month with the cover-up of all cover-ups. MSNBC, CBS, NBC, CNN, all of the fake news legacy media will not cover this. They will not cover Hunter Biden's hard drive from hell. They don't care. They do not care about this country. The question is, do you? As always, keep your eyes and ears open. Trust your instincts and do not be afraid to speak up for your rights. Never bend the knee. Do not forget to subscribe on YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify. Follow us on all the social medias, especially Parler and Rumble, @Jimbo John Galt.